Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a truly compelling narrative. It's about how a leader, really facing what seemed like insurmountable political challenges, managed to leverage a national crisis
hmm
and turn it into a surprising political resurgence. You've brought some fascinating insights.
Yeah,
And our mission today is really to unpack this story layer by layer. We're talking, of course, about Benjamin Netanyahu, often known as Bibi, and his pretty remarkable political comeback.
it is a remarkable story, and it reveals so much about that um, intricate dance between power, conflict, and how the public sees things on the world stage.
Right.
What's really fascinating here is how the tumultuous events, particularly the Gaza war starting late 2023, weren't just background noise. They actually became instrumental in stabilizing his very precarious political position.
Hmm.
We've seen evidence that suggests by mid-2025, this conflict, paradoxically perhaps, helped him restabilize his coalition, regain ground, even with those personal legal fights and huge domestic criticism swirling around.
Okay, so let's set that scene properly then. Mid-2024. Paint the picture for us. Netanyahu, this figure who's dominated Israeli politics for so long.
Decades, yeah.
He was in an incredibly precarious spot. I mean, his approval ratings were just plummeting, weren't they?
Absolutely free-falling, reflected this really widespread public dissatisfaction.
And then there were the ongoing corruption trials casting this long shadow.
Moving large, yeah.
And his ruling coalition, I remember it felt like this fragile thing, this alliance of, well, quite diverse parties, including his own Likud, obviously.
Israel's main right-wing party, yeah.
It just felt like it was constantly teetering,
Yeah.
right, on the edge of collapse.
Totally. Every decision, every statement seemed to just push him deeper into a corner. His latest tenure was already marked by huge internal arguments, over things like judicial reform.
Right, that was massive.
Yeah, massive protests. It just felt like it was all about to unravel. There was this real sense, that maybe this was finally the end of his long career.
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you zoom out a bit, it wasn't just a standard political rough patch. It was a profound crisis of leadership for him personally.
Mm-hmm.
He was facing these unprecedented protests, like you mentioned, and even inside his own party, Likud, you heard rumblings of discontent.
Right.
Then came October 7th, 2023.
Okay.
The Hamas-led attacks and the Gaza war escalating from there.
Right.
It just transformed the entire political landscape.
Completely.
Initially, the shock, the grief, it led to this demand for immediate accountability. Netanyahu was under even more pressure. People questioned preparedness, the response.
Understandably.
But what we've sort of observed since then is how this conflict, despite its horrific human toll, it unexpectedly morphed into this pivotal stage for his political survival.
Hmm.
It basically turned what looked like his political end into this, controversial new beginning. The national unity, the focus on security that came out of the crisis. It started to shift the political winds slowly but surely.
Okay, this is where it gets really compelling for me. April 2024. There's this moment, this window of potential calm, a real glimmer of hope, maybe.
It seemed like it.
Egypt and Qatar are actively mediating. We're talking a possible truce, 6 weeks, involving a hostage release.
Yeah, a significant one. It wasn't just talk. The proposal seemed quite concrete. A path for dozens of Israeli hostages to come home, exchanged for Palestinian prisoners.
And on top of that, you had Saudi Arabia dropping these diplomatic hints about possibly normalizing relations with Israel. I mean, that's a massive geopolitical prize.
Huge. But it was conditional.
Right, conditional on a clear, credible move towards a two-state solution, which aligns with their long-standing Arab peace initiative from 2002.
Exactly. That initiative basically calls for full Arab normalization in return for full Israeli withdrawal from occupied territories and a just solution for Palestinian refugees.
So yeah, it really felt like a doorway to peace might actually be opening up and
Yeah.
a chance for regional change, de-escalation.
Which leads to the critical question we've been looking at. Why wasn't that door walked through?
Yeah.
Our analysis, drawing from various places, strongly suggests Netanyahu hesitated. Some reports even say he denied the plan's existence entirely,
Really? Denied it existed.
which seems like it must have been a strategic move.
Yeah.
By mid-2024, remember, he's facing intense pressure at home. His coalition is fragile, especially the right-wing elements.
And many of whom would absolutely oppose a two-state solution or big concessions.
Precisely. So it appears he chose to leverage the ongoing conflict as a kind of political shield.
Okay.
The consensus among many analysts is that he used the war to rally support around security, shift the focus away from his legal problems, the government's internal fights.
Mhm.
And some research into those negotiations suggests he might have even well, deliberately stalled or maybe effectively sabotaged the peace talks. Why? To keep his coalition intact.
Because any move towards two states, even a long ceasefire, could break it apart.
Exactly. It risked alienating those ultra-nationalist and religious factions he absolutely needed to stay in power. It's a striking example, controversial obviously, of how immediate political survival needs can just shape, maybe even override, bigger foreign policy goals or peace opportunities.
Wow.
And this approach, polarizing as it was, it seems to have worked for him, politically speaking. You see that in his recovery by July 2025.
So it wasn't just about, say, inaction on peace talks. The narrative also points to deliberate military moves that seem to offer distinct political benefits.
Yes.
Let's look at a couple of key moments here. First, this almost unbelievable incident back in October 2023, right near the start of the Gaza conflict. A planned strike on Hezbollah, that's the militant group on the northern border in Lebanon. It was aborted, called off right at the last minute.
Yeah, I remember the initial report.
The reason given at first was, what, radar mistaking birds for drones? Amidst all the chaos after October 7th.
Which sounds plausible in that fog of war, maybe. But our sources point to something deeper, more political. Delicate negotiations happening right then with Benny Gantz. Key rival, former defense minister, leads the centrist National Unity Party. Netanyahu was trying to bring him into an emergency war cabinet.
To broaden the government's legitimacy, share the burden.
Exactly. And a major strike on Hezbollah at that exact moment. That could have escalated things dramatically into a multi-front war.
Which Gantz, as a former military chief, would have been extremely wary of.
You'd assume so. The implication, as some have analyzed it, is that the military decision, or non-decision, was at least partly influenced by the political need to get that stable, broad war cabinet formed.
So a tactical choice potentially shaped by coalition politics.
It really highlights that razor-thin balance, doesn't it? Military strategy, national security, coalition stability, all tangled up. That incident, though maybe not fully understood politically at the time, shows how these things connect, especially when a leader's fighting for their position in a crisis.
Okay, then let's fast forward to June 2025. A much more dramatic example, perhaps. Operation Rising Lion.
Yes, a very significant event.
This was a major strike, wasn't it? Against Iran's nuclear infrastructure. June 13th, 2025. Targeting places like Natanz.
A critical uranium enrichment site, absolutely central to their program. And yeah, this wasn't a minor skirmish. This was a big military action.
What was the impact?
Well, Operation Rising Lion, based on what we've gathered, it severely degraded Iran's their covert missile program. It neutralized several key figures, high-ranking commanders in their nuclear and military structures.
Wow.
And crucially, the assessment is it pushed back their nuclear ambitions by maybe 2 to 3 years. So strategically, a major blow to Iran's capabilities.
And the political effect back home for Netanyahu?
Immediate.
Yeah.
And very clear. This operation acted like this powerful stabilizing force for his coalition, which was still quite fractured, remember?
Yeah.
It effectively silenced those hawkish critics on his right flank who had been pushing for tougher action against Iran. And it massively boosted his image. Strong leader, decisive, willing to take bold action for security.
And the polls reflected that.
Oh, yeah. They shifted noticeably. Public support for how he was handling security went up. It's a really compelling case where a major military strike served a very clear, very immediate domestic political purpose.
So demonstrating strength, leadership, just when his survival was still, not guaranteed.
Exactly. He basically leveraged an external threat, or the response to it, to consolidate his power internally.
Fascinating.
Absolutely. These moves, they were militarily significant, no doubt, and always presented as vital for national security. But they were also, you can't deny it, politically calculated. They helped him navigate that intense domestic pressure, shore up his base, consolidate power when he was vulnerable. And what's interesting is how you see these different narratives form, right? Some see necessary defense against a real threat. Others see it mainly as a political play to stay in power.
That duality is key.
It really highlights the controversy, the complexity of these high-stakes decisions.
But of course, this kind of story, conflict on this scale, it always comes at an immense cost. And the human cost here is just staggering.
It truly is.
By mid-2025, the humanitarian situation in Gaza had descended into just utter catastrophe. Our sources show over 55,000 Palestinians killed by June 11th, 2025.
An enormous number.
And a staggering 90% of the population displaced, forced into these desperate, overcrowded conditions, very limited resources.
And the threat of widespread famine, rising starvation deaths.
Yeah.
It was looming large. Plus, all the indirect deaths from the collapse of healthcare, basic infrastructure.
Just horrific.
And this tragic human toll inevitably led to severe, widespread international condemnation.
Right. Like the International Criminal Court.
Exactly. The ICC, which investigates war crimes, crimes against humanity, they issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu himself and for Yoav Gallant, his defense minister, back in November 2024.
On what grounds?
The charges cited included various war crimes and crimes against humanity, things like starvation as a method of warfare, intentionally directing attacks against civilians.
Whoa.
Connecting that to the bigger picture, it just vividly shows the scale of the global backlash against Israel's actions in Gaza. Many countries, international bodies, saw them as excessive, disproportionate, causing immense civilian suffering.
Although some nations did support Israel's right to self-defense.
Of course. But the sheer scale of the humanitarian crisis provoked this widespread international alarm.
And it wasn't just the ICC, was it? What about those Saudi normalization talks?
Effectively stalled, completely dead in the water by mid-2025.
Even though they were such a big goal before October 7th.
Huge goal. But Riyadh became absolutely firm. Palestinian statehood was a non-negotiable condition, and their position hardened significantly after the war started.
Plus, public opinion in the Arab world must have shifted.
Dramatically against normalization, making it politically impossible for Saudi Arabia to move ahead without real progress on the Palestinian issue. So this diplomatic isolation, failing to get that breakthrough with a key regional power, it really highlights the strategic price that was paid.
Right.
So fast forward again to July 2025. Netanyahu's political position. It had indeed undergone this remarkable recovery.
Yeah.
His party, Likud, had stabilized, getting against that key rival. He eventually left the emergency government. The crucial state budget got passed. All these things positioned Netanyahu as a leading frontrunner for the 2026 elections.
It's quite a story of political survival.
Absolutely remarkable, and undeniably driven by the war and these calculated military and diplomatic moves. He really did turn what looked like the end into a surprising new chapter.
So what does this all mean for us, the listeners, as we sort of process this incredibly complex, sometimes very difficult story? It's just a compelling, maybe even chilling look at that intricate dance between national conflict and individual political survival, where a leader can seemingly use a national crisis to strengthen their own position. And while Netanyahu certainly regained his political footing, held onto power, the costs were just immense, weren't they? The humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the international isolation, the stalled diplomacy with key players like Saudi Arabia.
Huge costs.
It just raises these profound questions, I think, about the ethics, the long-term implications of these kinds of tactics, not just for a leader's career, but for the whole future of the region. It's a story that's definitely still unfolding, leaves us with so much to think about.
It really does. This deep dive makes you grapple with that question. When does a leader's focus, maybe their singular focus, on political survival in a crisis start to fundamentally impact the well-being, the future path of an entire region?
Yeah.
It's such a complex interplay, one we'll definitely keep watching closely. And certainly something worth reflecting on as you think about this, this really remarkable story of an unlikely comeback.